Hello, Kelly. Hello, Zach. Hello, Julia. Martha, Doris, thank you for doing that. I think this will be the final step over here. Yay! I think it's actually going to work everywhere today. All right, so let me go ahead and get this going. All right, welcome everyone. We are here. Welcome everyone. We are here for the Co-Creating Miracles and Healing with the Archangels. One of my favorite topics, definitely near and dear to my heart. They were the first, really, besides my grandparents on my spiritual journey, the Archangels were really the first spirit guides that helped me so much, and I still love working with them every day. So I love teaching and supporting people to connect with their archangels. And so say hello if you are new. I would love to see. Hello, Mary, Amita, Laura. Are you new to me? Are you new to the archangels? Let me know in the chat. Have you worked with your archangels consciously before, right? Whether it's for healing or for creating miracles. Today, we're going to talk about 3 essential keys to manifesting quickly and effortlessly with the support of your archangels. And we're going to talk about how you can cultivate your spiritual support team, right? I always like to talk about them as my spiritual advisors. I know they have been so empowering for myself, as well as hundreds and if not thousands of students at this time that I've talked about teaching people how to work with their archangels and how to really co-create your life in a way that you can work with this angelic support to support you. I am new to the archangels and I asked for them to come in, but I was unsure of what I was doing. Oh, awesome. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to talk a lot about this today, how to bring it really practical as well, right? I love teaching spiritual aspects and concepts, but it's the most helpful when we can bring it very practical into our day-to-day. And so for some of you that have already been here for a while working with your archangels, that's amazing. Hopefully my intention is that you're going to also get some inspired insights or new perspectives to take home. And for those of you that are new, I'm going to start from the beginning so that you have a nice solid foundation to work with. So what I want to start with as well is talking about one thing that I love working with my archangels for is they've helped me not feel alone. They've helped me feel like I could dream bigger dreams, right? And achieve them because I didn't have to have it all figured out by myself. And I think that sometimes when we have these big ideas and dreams, we can get very overwhelmed from our limited human perspective. And so working with the archangels definitely exponentially allowed me to dream bigger dreams and know that it's possible with a lot more fun, ease, and grace than I ever knew prior. Now, what I wanted to start with, because I think some of you will probably resonate with this as well, is 3 main problems that I often see. So you can let me know in the chat as we go through. Number 1, you can put 1 in the chat if this resonates as we go through. So I remember when I first started wanting to work with the archangels, I felt like I was learning a foreign language, right? It's like I was aware of their presence, but I began seeing simple, kind of vague signs. But when I really needed clarity or directions, I really couldn't decipher the messages. So let me know if that's happened to you. I love, by the way, still love getting numbers and synchronicities and number signs. And there are some awesome number sign books that you can work with in terms of deciphering messages. But I remember I'd get messages and like see a feather or a rainbow, which I still get tickled every time. In fact, I just got back from Mount Shasta and it was rainy and we got our tent set up to do a meditation. Then all of a sudden the skies parted and a huge rainbow right over the lake right in front of us happened. And we're like, yay, our spirit guides are here. And our meditation was all about connecting with spirit guides and ancestors, right? So it's totally fun and validating to still get those angel numbers and like the feathers and the rainbows and things like this. And I remember sometimes feeling like when I really needed to have more clear direction, I was getting the validation they were there, but I really didn't know much beyond it, right? Yes. Right? I see numbers more than I see anything or feathers. And I think those are great signs, right? But it's sometimes not as much clear information as we're wanting to have, right? So number 2, when I did receive messages clearly, it was still hard for me to trust them, right? So I didn't always take the action or the suggestion. So my life didn't really change very quickly or consistently. So let me know if you have ever gotten a message with a pretty clear information, but then still hesitated in trusting being able to take that action. Because what I find is so often the actions and next steps will be a little bit outside of our comfort zone, right? And so then we don't do it and then nothing changes, right? Because that's how it works. It's like we get one or two steps at a time, like breadcrumbs, right? When we open up and ask our spiritual support team, and I'll talk a little bit more about how to actually get your messages, but it's like we open up and then suddenly we don't have, we don't want to take the step because we're not trusting ourselves or trusting the process. What if I'm new to this and I don't have hands-on experience? This is perfect, totally perfect that you're here. You're here for a reason. And I'm going to talk about some steps and things you can do to start doing that. But I just wanted to address some of the problems I think some people have, right? Yes, trust is a huge obstacle, especially believing that I'm not making things up. Yes, I can totally relate to that. I often get ringing in my right ear and I know that messages are coming in from spirit guides. However, I don't always intuitively know what they mean. You're not alone in that for sure. Hey, I love my angels and guides with all my heart, but I have issues following their guidance way too often, right? Is that due to trust? Right? Or is it that you're having a hard time getting clear messages? I think both of those things can happen at times, right? Especially because a lot of times fear, like I said, fear can be on the other side of like stepping into our comfort zone. And that's when our ego's fear is louder than the voice of our intuition or louder than our angels and guides. And so sometimes that can cause us to overthink things or to kind of keep asking for continued signs, but to never really actually take the step. So let me know if that makes sense. I see on a digital clocks people's birthdays that have passed like 9/14 nearly daily. That's how special, right? That's really special. It's kind of like that is our loved ones often will give us a more specific symbol, right? As we start to work with angels and guides in particular, we'll start to get specific symbols oftentimes. So I love that, that's a way that you've begun to recognize that they can communicate that they're there with you, right? That's super powerful. And I think another thing, number 3, that sometimes people have, this is what I found for myself, and maybe you can have this problem as well, which is I didn't really have anybody in my life to talk to about these newfound awarenesses. I was so excited to know that I was hearing my grandparents and connecting with my archangels, but it was really easy to get in my head and discount things because I didn't really have anybody that understood to talk to about it, right? So for me, I was missing community. I know that my family, I was raised in a very more conservative religious upbringing, and so they were very concerned that I was being deceived, and so it was easy for initially things to kind of be not trusted. Like I knew that wasn't true, but then yet that little creep of doubt or seed of doubt would creep in, and then I might second guess it a little bit, right? And I think that as a collective, we have years or lifetimes really of different types of programming and experiences that have conditioned us to fear and doubt our spiritual guidance or our spiritual gifts or our intuitive knowing, whether that's directly with ourselves or our archangels and guides, right? Usually when their guidance goes against my usual way of doing things. Yes. And I think that that's actually a great, it's something to consider. I think it's always important to have a healthy dose of discernment and knowing that we always have free will of choice. But I do recommend playing and dancing, especially when things are a little bit different than we're thinking. Here's a quick example of how it can work. And then I'm going to talk more practically about how you can receive signs, ask for signs, and start to recognize them. But as an example, I had been working with my archangels for quite a long time, and I was getting into the car, and I've gotten in the habit of asking them each day, right? Give me loud, clear signs. And that's really the first step, and I'll come back to this again, but I would ask them to give me signs for things and to work with them in like the little things, right? So that when a big opportunity came where I had to take a big leap of faith or make a financial investment that was scary or something way outside of my comfort zone that didn't seem logical, I was willing to do it because I'd already built and cultivated the trust muscle in the day-to-day little things. So that is one thing I definitely recommend is starting with the day-to-day little things, because this can absolutely give you that confidence and courage and trust to take bigger leaps of faith when it really matters, or when you can make what people will call quantum shifts, right? Or jumping timelines. That's often when we've taken a significant shift that's outside and defying the logical route of things. As an example, how long it might take to build a business, right? If we go the logical route, we can make a lot more effort than it needs to be sometimes. Still work and effort involved, definitely stretching your comfort zone involved, and it doesn't have to take the logical steps. It doesn't have to be limited to just the logical steps when we start to leverage our spiritual support team as well. And we can also use them for healing as well. But as an example, I was going to be late to an appointment, or I had, it's 11:11, right? We got our angel sign. At least where I am. But I asked, I got into the car and I had 10 minutes to get to an appointment. Okay. And I'm mentioning this one because somebody said, especially when it goes against my logical, what I would think, right? So I asked, I'm like, hey, I need to get to this appointment quickly. Help me get there quickly. Just kind of asking them to support this, to make it smooth, effortless trip. And all of a sudden I kind of had this idea or quick vision, kind of more of an idea vision, right? It was very quick, fleeting, to kind of take this zigzaggy backwards way. And I'm like, I immediately forgot. I asked them for help like I was supposed to. Like, hey, give me help. And then I got into my head, I'm going to be late, right? And then I had this idea to go this random way. And I'm like, why would I do that? I kind of poo-pooed it really quick. I'm like, why would I go that? That feels confusing, right? And so I kind of just shoved it off, not really grasping the sense. So I went the normal, usual route, and all of the streetlights were out. Right, it was blinking red lights, and so I was definitely late for my appointment because I went the usual logical route and ignored my guidance. And it was not until hindsight that I realized, I got information that wasn't something that would be my normal thought, but I hadn't, because I was so busied in my mind, I hadn't quite connected the fact that this was actually what I just asked for 5 minutes before, was guidance about how to get there on time. If I had listened or taken a moment to just pause and be like, where is this coming from? Do I want to trust this random path and not need to know why, right? I might have never known that the streetlights were out. However, I probably would have got there on time. And so now I've just learned to trust a lot more. That experience, was it no harm, no foul, really? Yeah, I was late. It probably caused a little stress. But in that moment, I learned something very valuable, which was when something comes in that might be outside of my normal thought of thinking or way I would do something, it's important to take a moment to pause and reflect, like, where did this information come from? Is this something that I want to, entertain or to listen to, right? Does that make sense? And so it's in the day-to-day smaller things. And this is something I also want to mention, because a lot of people ask me this. I don't want to bother my archangels or my guides with something too small, right? There's so many people that need bigger miracles, or I don't want to take away from somebody else if they need something more. And so, but really what I would say is archangels are not limited to the same 3D reality that we are. They're not bound by time and space in the same way that we are. So as an example, Archangel Michael can help every single person on the planet with an individualized experience at the same time, because they're not limited in that way. So you're never taken away from something more important. Okay. In fact, one of the biggest jobs that archangels have is to help us find more peace within, right? Peace and joy and peace in our life. And a lot of that has to do with our day-to-day schedule in life. So if asking for a faster route or the quickest parking spot might seem simple, but it's those little things in the day-to-day that actually alleviate a lot of stress and cultivate and build trust in the way that we receive our messages from our archangels. Because each one of us, there are 5 main ways I'll talk about, but in just a moment. But we're all going to have our own individualized way, or 1 or 2 ways that actually is more the way that we recognize the signs, right? Or in some cases, we might get even more personalized, like we start to build up our library of symbols, like the person, like Zach mentioned about on the clock, getting the birth dates of people who have passed, right? Like that's a more specific library of symbol. For me, if I'm talking about my grandparents, my grandmother will show me an iris oftentimes, sometimes a hummingbird. And I got to recognize that when I would do that, I'd start thinking of her, and then I'd start to recognize, oh, her energy's here getting my attention. Right. And so you'll start to build up your own specific signs as well. And I call it your library of symbols. So I hope that makes sense. So I think that it's important to just to know that, and to have people to communicate with, right? So if you guys are new to me, just know that I have a free Facebook group that has over 42,000 or maybe 45,000 empaths, sensitives, and intuitives on their spiritual path. So that's one way, right? Also YouTube, I have a community, but I think the Facebook group's nice because we can communicate and share things a little bit more and not feel crazy if you don't have family or friends that understand, which often happens when we first go through our awakening journey. Often we might be the first ones, right? And then, of course, there's meetup groups and metaphysical, different types of spiritual classes and stuff in your hometown, probably at all. So that's what I wanted to start with. So now let's kind of talk about a little bit more, like, how can you start to cultivate this connection with your angels and guides, right? To create miracles. And let me just explain my perception of, or under, like, how I like to use the definition, I would say, of miracle. It's not just something that happens to us randomly necessarily, right? I believe that when I'm talking about co-creating miracles, I mean that you have set an intention, you've harnessed your co-creative powers within, right? You've set an intention for something. You've opened up to listen to your intuition and asked your angels for support and help in this, or your guides, right? And then you followed the intuition to create and manifest that miracle, right? To me, it's setting an intention forth, knowing you're a conscious creator, powerfully following your intuitively guided steps, and then allowing the miracle to be received, right? That is something that we're meant to experience every day. That's really meant to be how we get to experience life, right? Doesn't mean that we won't have trials and tribulations to navigate, because that's part of our spiritual growth. That's also why we embody, but it doesn't have to be nearly as difficult or arduous as we make things most of the time, right? And so why not utilize our spiritual support team? And they're also very funny. They're also very funny. They have, so one thing I love about the spirits, archangels in particular, is they each have a very unique frequency, like, or specialty, if you will. So when you start to get to know and recognize the different archangels immediately, just by calling on their presence, even if you don't fully understand their messages clearly yet, their energy evokes a specific feeling or energy, right? So Archangel Michael is very much, has this big protective energy. So he's really good to call upon if you want to eradicate fear or feel safe or have confidence if you're doing something out of your comfort zone. He's also the keeper of your life purpose. So he's a great person to talk to or to start to work with, to be guided in the direction of your soul's purpose, right? And then on the other hand, Archangel Shamuel, it has an energy that embodies peace. So if I'm feeling anxious or ungrounded, Archangel Shamuel could be a great archangel to call upon, because even if I don't understand the messages, his energy evokes a certain frequency of energy, right? Of that peace and groundedness, which can help calm the nervous system, calm the anxiety, being present, right? And so that's a great archangel. And there's so many of them, and they all have their own unique, individualized specialty and frequency that elicits a healing just by having their presence around. You'll start to build your communication skills with them over time as well. But they're both great healers and great guides, right? In terms of manifesting, so they can be both. So when it comes to working with your spirit guides, one thing you need to know is that we all have free will of choice. So our archangels are not going to intervene when we're unconscious about it. They're always going to answer you. Another question I have sometimes is, I feel like I've ignored my archangels or my guides for so long that they're not answering me, or I've asked them, but they're not answering me. They will always answer you. They're always there. It's sometimes our fear or our doubt that can create a little bit of a block between our awareness of that. But just know that your archangels are always going to come when the moment you're conscious of asking for them. And sometimes your higher self might have already asked before you're really aware of calling them in more consciously. But because we have free will of choice, and because we're here learning and growing and evolving spiritually on our path, they're not going to intervene without our asking, because it would almost be like a codependent relationship. We wouldn't ever learn. We would just think we were lucky, right? We wouldn't understand that we had a co-creative power in changing our lives or in healing ourselves or with the universe, right? So they're not going to take away our free will of choice, which is why it is important to not abdicate responsibility to them making the decision for things for us. I feel that one comes up a lot too, where people say, well, I'm asking my angels what to do. And it's like, well, that might be just not quite the right question, because they're going to say, well, what do you want to do? And then whatever you choose, they're going to help guide you and support you into the higher alignment of that path. But you have free will of choice. So they're not going to necessarily take away your free will of choice, but they will guide you in the direction of what's highest and best and most aligned for your soul's happiness, peace, joy, or whatever outcome you're intending to create for yourself. Okay. And so that's really important to know. We don't ever want to abdicate our power away. Because that wouldn't be empowering either, right? But they are always also going to be your ally and your support. Okay. And they're never going to judge you. So one thing to know is that it's important to ask, and that's really the first step. So something that you can start to do if you don't already, or maybe you do and then you're out of the habit of it. So it's a reminder, but just ask. So in each morning, I do this as well. I'll start with setting my intention, right? It could be a simple intention, just I want to align with my higher path and purpose today. Or maybe you have a more specific intention that you're wanting support creating a miracle around, like your business or a health goal or a financial goal or something like that, right? So it can be more broad or more specific or both, right? Because you'll get messages for both types of manifesting both things. But at the very minimum, I ask to help me align with my higher path and purpose today, because what that does is everything else is kind of by default going to start to fall under that umbrella, right? And at least I've now acknowledged that. And so now throughout the day, I'm going to be more conscious. So sometimes this is another thing that happens for people, is when they're in their quiet meditation space, feeling all good and open, get clear messages. And then you go out amongst the day or the traffic or the works, clients, whatever, you go out into the world basically and get very distracted. And then it's hard to hear your guidance throughout the day. So you're really only manifesting a small part of the time. Where when you start to engage with your spiritual support team and your archangels throughout your waking day, they'll help bring you back into that spiritual alignment so that you can be a match to manifesting all throughout your day, right? They'll start to, when you start to recognize the frequency of your archangels, they'll snap you out of an unconscious stupor, right? Which puts you back into alignment and back into your power and back into synchronicity. Have you ever been, tell me in the chat, in that synchronistic flow, right? For some of you that have been doing this a little while, and if not, it's totally fine. And you might find after hearing today's talk that you've actually been more connected to your angels than you might realize. But have you ever been in that synchronicity where it just feels like you're on a magic carpet ride and everything's just flowing and you're kind of tripping over things, and it's like, oh, this is so much fun. Like everything's just working out, right? I'm just creating and manifesting effortlessly, right? That is actually how we're meant to experience life a lot more of the time, right? But we have to be aligned for it. How can we know if an archangel or personal guide or angel? So that starts to take a little bit more by asking. You can start to ask, you know what I mean? It takes a little bit more discernment and practice with your angels and your archangels, right? So I think that's like a question that you would want to start asking. You can communicate through meditation, through Q&A journaling with your guides. Ask what your guide's name is. Don't get hung up on the name, right? Or if you don't get the name, they're going to agree if it's a personal guide to just, you can make an agreement with them. As an example, I had a dolphin guide and she came through and I got the name Sally and I questioned it. I was like, Sally, what kind of name is that for a dolphin? That's not right. But guess what? Sally, my dolphin guide, still with me 12 years later. Does she have some other name? Maybe, but we agreed Sally works, right? So don't get too hung up on it. For sure, but just know that. So, so I think that will take a little bit deeper level of discernment, and you asking and kind of spending a little bit of quiet time with the frequency of that guide to start to recognize and build the energy of trust and awareness with that different frequency, right? So, I'll share a little bit more about how you can go deeper, because I see some people asking, like, how can I go deeper with recognizing the archangels and things like that, and what their specialties are. And I do have an archangel alignment activation series that I will share more about for those of you that want to go deeper as well. I feel the presence of Archangel Michael and his protection. Oh, I love that, Renata, because, doesn't that feel empowering to know that you're not alone? And that's, again, kind of coming full circle back to what I started with, is I feel like I could dream bigger dreams. I never had to feel alone, afraid, or overwhelmed. Like, since I really started connecting with my archangels, I know that I'm always, guided and protected and not alone. So I can go after things, not having to know the how, just trusting that if I have my spiritual support team behind me, which they always are, working for my higher good, then I can just drop in and ask 1 or 2 steps at a time and trust my intuition and take the guidance steps. And then pretty soon, in a very short period of time, your life will look very different, right? Your life will look very different. And so it's definitely just something that gets built up. And also, I think just not feeling alone is in and of itself can be healing, right? I know when I first had my awakening, I felt very alone because I didn't know anyone to talk to, right? And my old life and friends weren't really aligned in a lot of ways for this new information and awareness that I had. And so I spent maybe the next 6 to 9 months kind of just reading books by myself because I didn't have anyone, right? Until I started cultivating community through meditation classes and learning how to work with my angels and things like that. And then I found community. So that was amazing. Okay, so let's come back to the topic at hand. You got to ask, right? Free will of choice. You have to ask, and you can do that simply. There's no right or wrong. You can do that in your mind. You can say it out loud in meditation. You can say it, write it out in your journal. But it's simply just, please give me loud, clear signs I can easily understand to help me align with my highest path today, right? Or to align with this goal or that goal, whatever it is. And then it's our job to let go of the expectation of the how, right? But then to start to just trust and follow the breadcrumbs, start to be open, right? Our intuition also works off of these open-ended questions. So your higher self, your angels and guides, the universe directly, it's all going to work with like our intuition. We all have it, for one thing. We can all develop it. Absolutely. It's a part of our chakra system, right? We all are a soul. We all have an energetic body, which is our soul's essence and energy, right? We have chakra systems, and our intuition or psychic gifts, really, they're the same thing. It just might be the level of confidence you have with them is what you might consider it to be. But ultimately, we all have them, but we might have 1 or 2 ways that are more natural, but we can cultivate all of them. So our job is to ask and be open and then receive the intuitive information, right? Our intuition, a definition could be our conscious awareness of the unseen, our conscious awareness of that is not tangible or that is unseen, the unseen world, right? And how we might start to notice and recognize these signs can be a few different ways. And I'll talk about, there's more, but I'll talk about 5 main ways, which is going to get you where you need to go in this beginning this relationship with them, right? And that would be first through your clairsentience, which is your feeling. And I think that this one is one that a lot of us have, but also a lot of us discount. Oh, it's just a feeling. It's just a feeling. Well, your feelings and your emotions are an important barometer to, am I going in alignment or out of alignment with myself, right? Am I getting further out of alignment or more in alignment? You do have to learn to discern the difference between moving through your comfort zone, which can feel a little bit like scary sometimes, but there is a difference because fear, is it fear or love that's driving that desire or action, right? You can start to tune into that. But our feeling, how do you feel, right? And let me just mention too that your archangels are never going to judge you. They're not going to berate you. They're not going to say anything mean. And they're not going to make you feel afraid, even if they're giving you a warning about something or someone. Okay? Meaning, maybe you're about to park in an alley that's dark. And how you might experience a feeling version of this is you might kind of feel like a warm hug, like kind of almost like a warmth redirection, like maybe you should park under the light over there, right? You're going to feel that redirection, but from a loving space. You're not going to feel like, oh, I just got the willy chillies, that I got scared. Like, they're not going to scare you, right? Not going to make you feel afraid, even if they're giving you a warning, or they might just give you a contracted, like for me with feeling, I'll often, and this might be different for you, I'll feel an expansion or a contraction, when I start to ask the question. So you can play with that. Now, one thing that I have noticed about sensitives and empaths, myself included, not knowing I was highly sensitive and empathic, not having a meditation routine at all at first before I found out about all this stuff, I was very disconnected from my body. So my feeling was actually a very strong receiver of information. However, I got so overwhelmed with my own emotions I didn't know how to process it, and that were repressed in my being, and also being a sponge to everybody else's energy and emotions, that I just sort of felt more comfortable up and out, which is very common for sensitives. Okay, so sometimes we can be disconnected from our body. And so part of that is, I do think some kind of meditation practice is really key, because if we're in our head in the future, or in our fears, or in the past ruminating about something that we're angry or frustrated or sad about, or in the future worrying about something else, we're distracted. That's much louder noise than the quiet voice of our soul, or our intuition, or our angels. And so the being in the present moment is our point of power. Okay. And so doing some kind of meditative work, even if you feel like your mind's too busy, just being the witness of your breath, practicing even 5 minutes a day, and then setting your intention for them to guide and support you and to give you the signs, is going to go a really long way in a short time. But it will be like a little ping pong match in the beginning. So you have to stick with it, and it will get easier more quickly and easily than you think. But just know that it's a little bit of a practice, right? You got to practice like flexing that muscle, right? The first time we do anything, yoga, tai chi, playing piano, all of that starts to become more muscle memory. But in the beginning, it's difficult because we haven't used our muscles in that way before, right? So yeah, just know that you have to ask, and then we have to let go of the how, and we have to start to pay attention to the actions. And so the other way that you'll start to see, besides feeling, could be hearing, right? Clairaudience is part of your throat chakra, and communication center of your telepathic channel. So you might actually hear with your spiritual ears, right? Your inner voice, or an angel, right? Or a guide. Or you might hear with your physical ears. Sometimes archangels will use humans, right? Or the music on the radio. Have you ever heard a song on the radio and it was just exactly the line that you needed to hear at that moment in time? It was exactly, or you felt it almost like that line illuminated, and it was like an answer to what you needed validation around, or a feeling, or an inspiration that you needed in that moment, or a message from a loved one coming through those words, right? Let me know in the chat if you've ever had that coming through. So it comes through music. It can come through physical overhearing a conversation. Maybe you asked about, I would like to develop my intuition. And then all of a sudden, guess what? On Facebook, you saw, which will be another one visual in a second, I saw the Facebook ad where Jen's doing a class about that. That was actually on some level you setting an intention, and then the universe bringing it to you that you visually saw, right? Or that you overheard somebody talking about a workshop, or a book, or something that might be on the topic of what you're thinking through. So just know that these signs can come through spiritual energy, or I think that could be visual, like our physical ears. With our sight, it could be through a vision, or a meditation, or through symbols. With our eyes closed, our dream space is connected with our clairvoyance as well, right? You might get dream like visions, or information that you wake up with, right? Or, like, I consider really your third eye is discerning the unseen. So it's actually picking up like the number sequences, or the physical signs that we visually see. Often I'll see like signs on billboards, or something. Like when I was looking at my soul's purpose, and I was looking at aligning more with my higher path, was driving and I saw this billboard, and it says something like, I am a channel, but it was really more for like an internet service or something like that, or like a satellite dish or something. And it just said channel or something like that. But the sign didn't just say, I didn't read the whole sign, but it was like it literally illuminated that word, right? Channel. And then maybe I overheard people channeling. Maybe I was getting it in my oracle cards about channeling, right? And so you'll start to see the synchronicity of getting the similar messages, maybe in the same or different ways a few times. It's something to pay attention to. Okay, that's something to pay attention to, and ask, like, where's this coming from, or does this make sense for me? Right? Is this something that I want to listen to? So they'll come through your feeling, through hearing, or spiritual ears, or physical through something or someone or conversation, through spiritual sight, right? Or through our visualization of picking up like the cosmic language through our eyes as we go through our waking day. And then our claircognizance is part of the crown chakra. And that is our ability to just know, right? To just know something. And that is sometimes the harder one to trust. And I also think very often a strong one for sensitives and empaths that were feelers that popped out of their body and they just kind of tap in right here to know, it's kind of a coping mechanism, right? Is it safe out there? What's going on? I'm not going to, it's too much inside. So I'm going to stick right here and tap in, right? And have that be my point of reference. But also if we've trusted people, like, trusting our claircognizance because there's not like a backboard of a feeling or a vision or a sound, right? We have to really trust. And so sometimes that also means cleaning up our decisions in the past that maybe we are judging ourselves about making or thinking it was intuition and it wasn't, or trusting somebody in a relationship who betrayed you. It's kind of like we have all these tinks against ourselves, like, oh, I can't trust myself. Remember the when I trusted that person and they cheated on me or they lied to me, right? Like, so we have to sometimes have some forgiveness around self in order to open up the trust of our claircognizance. But they really do all work together. And then of course thoughts, right? Not every thought we have is a guidance, but so this could come through, I would say, probably more connected with our claircognizance, but could be also clairaudient, depending. Is that we might get short, clear, concise action step, right? Very neutral. Eat, like for me, eat more organic, eat more organic, eat more organic. Like I kept thinking that, but I was just thinking that until I realized it was actually Archangel Raphael giving me a message, because I'd asked, I want to open my clairvoyance. I want to align with my spiritual gifts. This is early in my journey. And I kept hearing for a while, like, eat more organic. And this was early on. And I was like, well, if I can afford it, I would, or I wouldn't, depending. And then finally, I was like, I'm like, yeah, but I know that. But like, I want to know about my purpose and I want to open my clairvoyance. It's super frustrating that I can't see anything. And then finally, I was going to Barnes and Nobles, and Archangel Raphael was there. I started to recognize my archangels at this point. It's probably a few years into my journey. And I'm like, look, I got like 5 minutes. So he wanted to walk me into this bookstore. I'm like, okay, take me right to the book and what I'm supposed to see. And so he took me to a book, and then it was just like, open the book to like page 55. Like I was kind of getting the little breadcrumbs, and I opened it, and literally it said, highly sensitive people are more sensitive to pesticides and things. If you eat more organic food, it's actually going to help your system. And then if you eat pineapple, is also a stimulator of your clairvoyance and will help your gifts open up. So here I was getting the message, getting the answer, but I wasn't seeing the connection. And so I wasn't taking the step. And so no more steps really came, right? So if we don't start to take the action on the 1 or 2 steps at a time, that's how we unlock the next steps, right? We get 1 or 2 steps and then more steps. But if we don't take the action on the first step, we could be sitting there stalled out in neutral for years or months, right? If we aren't taking the action. And sometimes that's where I've learned to just do my best to be in highest alignment all the time. Every thought, every action either brings us more in alignment with our higher self and truth, or out of alignment. And some of these things are going to be slightly out of alignment and slightly more in alignment. And some things are going to be massively out of alignment and massively leap towards our alignment, right? So we just have to know that this is a step-by-step, day-by-day incremental thing. And we have to learn to trust and give up the control of needing to have it all figured out or know all the answers before we take a step. We just take the 1 or 2 steps at a time and more will follow, right? And so that's and also an important thing to know. And so those are some of the 5 main ways. Now, some people might get clairsentience by smell, and there's psychometry where you can feel objects. Like there's many other different, spiritual and psychic gifts. Our dreams, I feel, are also very related to our third eye oftentimes. So there are other aspects, but I do think that those 5 main ways are going to get you going a long ways and are definitely a part of the way that you're, and probably in the main ways that your spirit guides are going to communicate with you. Okay. So as you start to practice, and they can help with healing as well, right? There's been one time I got in a really bad car accident, and I really just called in my angels and guides, and I could feel Archangel Michael just coming in. It's like he his wings, like I almost saw him stop the energy of this car really rolling over me, really, right? I got hurt still, but it wasn't to the capacity that I could have. But I ended up going to the hospital and I had all these miracles. I remember going into surgery and I saw my room was 11. I was like, oh, as I was drifting off, that made me feel safe. And then as immediately upon coming out of anesthesia, the person next to me, the patient, they happened to call his name Archibald, which is my grandfather's name, which is not a unique name. So here it's like I went under seeing the room 11, feeling and noticing I was safe, that I came out of it with the doctor stating the patient's name, who happens to be my grandfather's name, Archibald, right? So I just knew my grandpa was there. Then my nurse's name was Buddhawana, and underneath in quotes it said angel, like that's the translation of her name. And I was like, this is so cool because spirit is giving me all of these signs that it's going to be okay. And then I worked with my archangels for the next 6 weeks. I couldn't get out of bed, and they were giving me healings every day, and then telling me, you know what, juices to juice, and getting directed to the right holistic guy. So I was doing the physical stuff and the doctor stuff, but I was also doing the spiritual stuff. When I came back, my doctor 2 different times mentioned that that's like a miracle. Doctors don't use the word miracle very often. They like science, right? A lot of times, mostly, right? But they're like, that's a miracle. Your bone is healed through at 6 weeks, when they didn't know if it would heal fully at all because of how big the gap was in my foot. Right? It was too shattered to add a pin, but it was too far to grow back. But it did in 6 weeks. So we can absolutely work with the archangels on a healing level, but also on a creative level, and also just on the day-to-day little seemingly errands level, right? And it's the day-to-day little things that help us when we need to make the big decisions that are really going to fast track ourselves to aligning with more peace, more joy, more miracles, more abundance, our purpose work, all the things, right? I work with my angels on all the things. So yeah, very, very powerful. So let me say, I say feeling is no doubts. Beautiful. Feeling is knowing, no doubts. Beautiful. When my mom passed in 2009, Annie's song by John Denver played in my head for 3 months, day and night. Strong lyrics to me. Beautiful, right? Isn't that, it's such a wonderful feeling when we have that connection, especially with our loved ones, right? And our angels and guides. This happens to me all the time. I'm so unsure whether to believe it or I'm just thinking it. Well, I hope today is helping you to see that it's not just coincidence, right? And that's why you keep asking for the signs. But when you get more than, the same thing coming to you a few times, that's now a synchronicity to consider, right? It's always free will of choice, but the more quickly that we act on these things, the more signs and synchronicities will come, and the more quickly we actually get to manifest the result of what we're wanting and what we're wanting to experience, right? And the more trust that we have and the bigger leaps of faith we can take, which then fast tracks our success, right? Or defies logic. And that's where you start hearing people say they have a quantum shift, right? Because it defies logic. They just literally had a massive energetic leap that likely came from following their intuition into something that didn't seem logical, that might have seemed like a risk, right? In some ways to some people, but they trusted and they leapt, and then it fast tracked something that they were creating or manifesting, right? So I hope that makes sense. So there's just some ways that I think are really powerful. And I love personally working with the different archangels. Now, to me, the archangels are so fun as well. Like, they're funny. They have a funny sense of humor, for sure. One more quick story. Cause I think sometimes stories help people see themselves within it, right? I was not listening to my archangels. I was being guided to not drink as much caffeine, and I was insistent upon going to Starbucks that day. And as I did, I got into a traffic zone, and then it got into construction, and I was getting more and more irritated. And then my day was getting off track more because I was like very stuck on this getting to Starbucks that day. And again, free will of choice. So I did. And in the meantime, I was getting into my head, getting more anxious and frustrated because I was getting more and more late because I took that detour. And so all of a sudden I saw like the big O tire sign that says, "Get your alignment now." And it's literally Archangel Michael. I just felt his energy going, come on, snap out of it, get out of your head, hand that over, get back into your body and get present, right? Like, hand over and get your alignment now. And so that snapped me out of my mental spin and helped me get back aligned into my power with what I was doing, right? Because otherwise I was just in a spin spiral down in the wrong direction, which tends to attract more things to be frustrated about, right? And so he snapped me back out, which is one reason why I love working with the archangels, because they help me when I've opened up the permission for them to come in throughout the day, then they can help me redirect. So then I'm aligned more of the day instead of only in my meditation space in the morning, right? Powerful to be in your meditation space because you set that intentional alignment very strong, right? And you get your guidance, but you want to also be directed to your alignment throughout your whole day so that you're manifesting what you do want more consciously and proactively more of the time instead of going completely unconscious and forgetting and then just letting life happen to you. We are always creating, even if it's by default, meaning not what we want through our unconscious thoughts or fear or doubt, right? We're always creating. And we can always step into a new point of alignment. It's never too late. We can always step into a new point of alignment to redirect and change the direction and trajectory of what we're creating in our life. And so I think that's also very empowering to know and to remember. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah, another one with Archangel Michael. I was running late. I was going, it was New Year's Eve, and I was like, this store doesn't have the right size, and I'm getting off of work and wanted this shirt. And so they called, and the one downtown had it. And so I'm going downtown, and I'm like, just make this quick and easy. Just make this quick and easy. I just kept saying, just make this quick and easy. Guide me to the right parking. Guide me straight in, straight out. I always got lost downtown. 5-layer parking garage. Get in there, and guess what? In the Macy's, I got there, and all of a sudden it was on. The lady, found me my thing, and on top of it, she gave me an extra coupons, and I was extra on sale. And I got in and out of there super fast. And as soon as I exited the parking lot, there's a big moving truck sign in dark blue, kind of like the color of my shirt, which is Archangel Michael's color, either deep indigo blue or purple. People see, and on the side of this moving truck, it said, "Now, wasn't that easy?" And it was a moving truck, actually, but it's pretty fascinating how the universe can actually conspire to actually get everything into an alignment for me to actually see that, because that's what I've been saying the whole time. Can you just make this quick and easy? Make it easy, make it easy. Now, wasn't that easy? And the same color of him. Like, how does that happen? It happens because of the I'm in energetic alignment to be in mode to receive the higher level of synchronicities at that time. And they have a sense of humor too, which is really great. So I hope that makes sense. Suddenly I started having this habit of seeing number plates when I drive, and I add up the numbers on the plate. Does that mean they're trying to say something? That very much could be. There's a lot of, there's no right or wrong with angel numbers as well. There's a lot of people that have like angel number books, or some people go more with numerology. You can Google, what does this number mean? But if you're feeling, especially that pattern of not only just seeing it, but then adding it up, getting to the root number, just trust what that means. Look it up and ask, what is the spiritual meaning of this number later when you have a chance, and see if that resonates. It likely will, right? That is very much a way that they're giving us signs, and that you're beginning to recognize. And when we start to validate the way that we receive signs, they'll give us more in that way, so that we can, because they understand there's conscious awareness that that's working, right? Now we can continue to cultivate all of our gifts, but that takes practice, right? And discernment. And so people were asking, how do I know the difference of which one or who to call? You can't really mess it up. You really can't mess it up, because the angels can really help with everything. But there is a lot of power in learning to discern and recognize the different archangels and their specialties, because even if you don't get a clear message, their energy elicits. Archangel Uriel brings clarity, right? So if you're kind of forgetting something, Archangel Uriel is great for clarity, or Archangel Shamuel brings peace, but he's also the finding angel. So if I'm missing something, my daughter's always working with Shamuel. Where's my keys? All of a sudden she'll get a flash from inside of where it's at. It works every time. And so you start to know who's the perfect tool for the job, if you will, because their energy frequency elicits the energy support that you need to find your alignment for yourself, to tap back into that intuition and to be back in flow with your answer. And so for those of you that are feeling called, I have a amazing Archangel Alignment Activation Series program that helps you multifaceted ways. So whether you're brand new, first of all, also tell me if this was helpful. I'd love to hear, was this helpful, and did you get a good insight, right? Are you starting to see that you're getting your signs more than you recognize, right? And can you start asking? Because I think that's important. But for those of you who feel called to want to either work with your archangels, learn to discern them, build your spiritual support team for healing or for manifesting, I have something very special for you on a special sale right now. Can we call on more than one archangel at a time? Absolutely. I do all the time. right? Absolutely. So the Archangel Alignment Activation Series, I'm going to show you a little bit about this right now in case you would like to check it out. So it works with 15 different archangels, and they definitely, I have two different screens going. So I'm going to share for Facebook separate from Zoom. Okay, so let me see how to get both screen shares happening. And what's cool about this is two things. You have an entire healing library, for one thing, that you can use at any time. It's on sale for 30% off from now until November 11th. Let me go to the top, sorry. So here's where it is. So the archangels, this series is going to have 15 different archangels, and I kind of want to show you. You can come back to the page if you want. This is going to help you get more clear in your communication, help to start delineate the differences between the different archangels. And also, so basically, here's where we are. Mastering the art of communication. So this is going to help you learn to communicate with your archangels. It's also deep healing. So for those of you who have already been working with your archangels, but you want to have some deep healing support, each module has one archangel with a short video training of their specialty, what crystals you can use to work with them, and a little bit about how you can invoke them. And then it has an attunement, so you can learn to communicate more specifically with that particular archangel. And then it also has a healing based on that specialty. So you have a whole healing library of 15 different healing activations. So it's going to elicit healing, the communication. You're going to be attuned so you can recognize them more easily and learn to begin to recognize who you need to call on so it's even more effective, and learn how to consciously create miracles and healing with the archangels, which is very exciting. Right? So this is going to increase your confidence and certainty with your ability to receive and discern messages from your spiritual support team. You're going to receive a healing and attunement from all 15 archangels. There's more than 15, but the 15 core in this program. And you're going to deepen your alignment to your higher path and purpose, because that's really what they're here to do, to bring peace, happiness, and alignment to your higher path and purpose. You're going to learn how to start to develop and practice your intuitive gifts. And you're going to feel more empowered in your communication practices, right? And so these are some people here who had done the Archangel Activation Series and how they really began to have miracles with their archangels, and how that helped them really get closer and have deeper communications with them, which is very exciting. And I want to show you the list of the angels that you're going to get to learn to work with and have a healing around. So you'll have a healing. So like I said, even if you already work with your archangels, just the healing aspects of working with your prosperity, working with peace, working with past lives, sacred geometry, relationship harmony, healing, right? Clarity. I mean, just all these different things. So you're going to get a healing for each of these things, and you're going to learn how to invoke and work with each angel's specialty so that moving forward in your life, you can start to harness the co-creative power and support of the Archangel team. Like I said, each one has a short video training, a guided activation, and a PDF talking about how to invoke them. There's more than 6 hours of content for sure. And right now, you're also going to get some bonuses, which is an extra video attunement on how to connect with the different realms of your angels and guides so you can have deeper connection. It's like tuning to the correct frequency so you can hear them or get their messages more easily, both ways, like a two-way call instead of a one-way. You're going to get 2 of my popular bonus workshops that I think will support you on this journey as well. My expansion journey with Metatron to activate your Merkaba, and then also the light language transmissions to align your body, mind, and soul. And there's also, I share with you my steps to conscious creation, plus there's some light language healings in there. And you're also going to chakra balancing activation and a bonus Archangel Christiel activation, which works with the divine feminine aspect of Christ consciousness, which is really beautiful. And then you can see there's another little tip here of some other reasons why I like to work with my archangels. You can get a little sampler of a meditation there. And right now, everything is on sale. It's regularly priced year-round on my site. I put it on sale maybe a couple times a year, and it's normally $4.97, but today you can, and between now and November 11th, you can get it for $347, saving $150, or a payment plan on sale for 3 payments of $133. Or you can also use Klarna if you're in the US. Unfortunately, they changed their rules. That's not my rule. Let me see if I can show you how. Basically, you click the in full amount. So I'll show you on both. Okay, so basically what you do is you go down here and you click to see if you what you want to get on Klarna. If you need a lower payment plan, you put the in full and go down here, and instead of adding in your credit card right away, you click the Affirm or Klarna to see what's available. And it's going to be different for each person. So for me, it's showing Affirm is $32 a month. And for Klarna, it's showing, both of them are showing $32 a month. And then you can choose whichever one. And you just, at that point, you click and you click that link, right? Whichever link you want to try. And you follow that process with them, right? And then you can see what you want to do. And that will give you an even lower payment plan. So let me know if that resonates for you, or if you have any questions. Trying to come back to StreamYard. There we go. All right. Yes, thank you. This month I started writing down every time I saw an angel number. It's been like 4 dozen times that I hadn't realized before how often. And it's awesome because the more you ask for things and the more you validate things, the more that they come. Just curious, is this the same Archangel series that alumni got with our membership? No. Well, you got a bonus for mastery certification students. You got a different Archangel advanced workshop. So this is different. That one does not come with all of the healings or anything like that. So if you want to reach out to me privately, I can tell you the differences, but I have many students that have both because they're definitely different. Let's see, what Archangel helps with changing the weather to what you want? I have good results of asking them to stop the rain so I can walk my dogs. Yeah, I usually have pretty good results with weather as well. I think part of that has to be with your overall alignment too. Sometimes I work with Merlin, but I think you can work with Archangel Haniel or Archangel Metatron can be really powerful. There's not one that's specific just for weather. So I think that if you have your alignment to your intention, oftentimes you can line up with it. If you have resistance to it, you won't. But when we're manifesting something that has to do with, that affects more than just us, like the weather, right? Or like something that has to do with manifesting for somebody else or in our life, or it's kind of a co-creative process with somebody else in our life, we can align ourselves as best we can, but if the larger collective influence is going to be better served in another direction or has more energy momentum in a different direction, then sometimes that won't work. That won't happen the way that you're wanting it to. So the best thing you can do is just be in the highest alignment for yourself and surrender the need for it to happen exactly as you want. It's kind of like the simultaneous, because when we're in resistance to needing something a certain way, it can actually block us. But it sounds like you're in good alignment with that. We're usually in pretty good alignment with that too. And part of that also has to do with the timing that we're choosing, right? Like choosing the timing that we are. So maybe it's still going to rain that day, but you're getting into alignment and a position that the timing works out with that window, right? Does that make sense? That's how we did it in our my UK trip. My daughter and I went to UK for a month together, and it's like we danced with the weather. Everyone's like, it's raining all the time here, but we would get to a city and it would have just stopped raining, and the day we're leaving it would start raining, and we just hopscotch. We hardly ever had rain except for the biggest rain day was a travel day, but every other time it would just start when we were getting back home or when we would leave. Let's see, when we ask for help, does Archangel Ariel, or who is that? Archangel just step forth with who matches our request. Okay, so which Archangel? So yeah, so basically exactly that. So if you don't know who to ask for, you're not going to get it wrong. Like ultimately, all of the Archangels can help with a lot of like things, right? Or if you're just setting the intention for support with something, yes, that's the spirit guide or Archangel that's going to be a good fit for you in that moment is going to step forward that you can recognize. However, there's definitely still a deepened sense of empowerment when you start to develop the confidence and trust of like who to choose, like which tool to use. It's kind of like if you're an artist, you have all these brushes. Sure, you have one paintbrush, you can paint a picture, but if you have all these different ones with the detail and the blender and this and that, right? Like having all these different tools that are more specific for the job kind of helps in a big way. And I think it helps you to feel empowered to start to recognize. So what I love about also working with the individual archangels, they'll have different personalities and energy, but like I said, their energy frequency in and of itself elicits a massive healing. So you can't mess it up and get it wrong. And I think you'll be more empowered in feeling that you are in a real co-creative experience the more you start to recognize and get to know and create a more personalized relationship with your archangel team. Does that make sense? Awesome. All right, so let me share the links for you guys if you want to check out the program. It's definitely, I love this. Is just such an inspired program to make, and it's been around, and I've had so many students use it and just love it and feel like they get so much, just feel really empowered in their connection with their archangels. So I'll put it in all the places. I'm not sure if it's going to go to Facebook. Sometimes I have to go onto Facebook separately at the end because my StreamYard doesn't, it goes to YouTube, I think, but not always Facebook. So I will come back with that link for you there as soon as we end the call. And I think I got all the questions that I can see live. And again, let me, yeah, if you have any more, I'll stay on for a second and let me just see if I can open up Facebook really quick and see if I can see it that way. Because it's not showing me comments at the moment. Yep, I don't see any questions. So, all right, everyone, I'm going to end it here. Facebook is just being a little finicky and making me do like a approval from my phone. You know how it does that sometimes. So I think for Facebook, I'm just going to come back right when I'm done here, check questions there and send the link. So let me know if you have any other questions. You can also hit reply to any email if you have questions about it, or just check it out. It's going to be a really powerful, empowering, self-based. You can do it on your own timing. I usually release one archangel a week because I think if you play with that archangel for the week, you really start to get to know and recognize the frequency, and then you build over time. So it's like you have one archangel and then you work with them for the week, and then the next week you have another archangel, but then you're still going to have your previous archangel work with you, and then pretty soon you have 5 archangels, and you'll really delineate your difference when you start to work with them in that way. So thank you so much for being here with me. I really look forward to hearing how this goes for you. If you do get it, please share in my Soul Inspired Leaders Collective Facebook group or hit reply to an email and let me know how it was. Yes, we'll definitely be sending this replay out. If you officially registered, we'll be sending this replay out to you as well. So have a wonderful rest of your day and happy co-creating with your angels and guides. I look forward to talking with you soon. Bye for now.